Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Bucci. Today I've got another Guild Wars 2 video for you, and today I'm going to be talking about the most recent patch, the Queen's Jubilee patch, which came out on the 6th of August 2013. For the most part it seems to be just housekeeping stuff in this patch, but I'm going to talk about some things anyway, and there is definitely some content that's worth looking at as well. So for those of you who don't read the lore or anything like that, I'm just going to summarise the context to this update. So to celebrate Queen Jenna's 10 years as the Queen of Kryta, a monument has been placed within the Great Collapse in Divinity's Reach, and it's called the Crown Pavilion. So not only is this a monument, it's also an arena of sorts to showcase humanity's struggle over the past 10 years or so. So robots known as Watch Knights have been created, and contestants can come in and fight against them. Yes, this includes the player. And using the powers of a mesmer, they can be adapted and changed to look like any type of enemy, and what could possibly go wrong there, eh? So the main ground floor of the Crown Pavilion, as you're going to be seeing in this video right about now, it's divided into 6 terraformed areas, if you will, and they're all meant to represent different places in the Guild Wars 2 world, in interior, and there are different enemies depending on these areas. So in the lava area there are things like destroyers, in the woodland area there are things like bandits, there are also char and ogres and things like that. It's all very cool. So occasionally bosses will spawn in these areas, and it's the job of the players to go around and kill them, and chests are rewarded after completing these events. And to be honest, I think this is as close to 10 man or 25 man raid content that ArenaNet are really planning on doing. This is, you know, you're going around, you're killing mobs, and then you're killing bosses in this big area as a big group. For those people who have been complaining that there's no 10 man or 25 man raids in Guild Wars 2, I actually think this sort of makes up for it. As someone who played WoW for about 4 years, this actually reminds me of it a little bit. It's not as boring as some of the elements of raiding in World of Warcraft, and I just think it's pretty fun to do. The rewards are good, and there are loads of new exotics as well, and you should try and do some of this to try and get hold of one. In addition to this, there are arenas in which players can fight against NPCs one-on-one, and others can spectate them. This is somewhat limited because you can only have one person in one of these domes at any one time in an instance, because loads of people are in overflows for this. But you can have one-on-one combat against an NPC, and you go through tiers fighting these bosses, and some of them are actually quite tough, but a lot of people are defeating them, and it's really entertaining, and I should have some of that footage up around now for you guys. I've tried it myself. I wasn't particularly good, as you'll probably see in this footage. I barely managed to get through it, but it seems pretty interesting, and it's worth trying out even if you're just going for the achievements. Hot air balloon rides to Divinity's Reach can be found throughout Kryta as well, and there's a torch runner challenge that's also available to players. I haven't tried either of these out yet. I haven't heard anything about the torch runner challenge, and I'm going to try that out soon, maybe put a video out of it. But I've heard that the hot air balloon rides are somewhat lackluster. I think some people were hoping for something like the Zeppelins in WoW, or maybe the Griffins in WoW, where you would climb into the hot air balloon and fly across the map to the Divinity's Reach. However, it's a case of you go to the hot air balloon, animation plays, and it cuts to Divinity's Reach, which is a little bit disappointing, but you know, it swings around about, and I think the majority of the content in this update is really good, so I can overlook this, although I really wish they'd improved on this and made it a little bit more interesting. While I would recommend that you go and try all this content I've just talked about, I personally think the best things in this update are the housekeeping changes, the quality of life improvements that ArenaNet have put into the game for some reason or another. So firstly, all currencies are being made account-wide, so it's really easy to keep track of karma, gold, glory and dungeon tokens across all of your characters. When you log into a character, it will update, and anything that character has, you know, be it dungeon tokens, karma, things like that, they will get directly put into this global tab, which shows all of your different currencies across all of your characters. So this really means that you'll no longer have to use the bank to get money to your alts, etc, etc. And I think it's a necessary change, which will make life a little bit easier in the game, and I think it's quite overdue, and I'm going to make a lot of use of it since I'm leveling alts at the moment. As well as this, we have world effects culling. This simply reduces the amount of particle effects going on in the map. Sometimes in boss fights there's too much going on, especially when you've got people like Mesmers and Guardians, and there's blue and purple and red and pink and everything just going all over the place, and sometimes you can't even see the boss. So this feature is really nice. There's a little button you press, it's limiting your particle effect, and it will probably be nice for people who not only who are suffering from FPS drops in fights, but also for those who just want to be able to see what's going on in the game. Dungeons have also had a loot overhaul, so now bosses will no longer drop money. Instead, you'll be granted between 1 and 3 gold for each unique path of a dungeon per account per day. So essentially there are now daily dungeons to do. So let's say you do Citadel of Flame Part 1 or Ascalonian Catacombs Part 1, and you will get money dependent on that. If you do them again, you will not get that money. It's count wide per day. So I can imagine a lot of people are going to be running around doing as many dungeons as they can. So the money will depend on the path you do, so I'm assuming that the more paths you do, you'll get more each time. So if you do Path 1, you'll get 1. Then if you do Part 2, you'll get 2. And if you do Part 3, you'll get 3. But I'm just speculating there. I need to try this out a little bit more. Hopefully this will encourage players to run more dungeons than Citadel of Flame Path 1. And I do think that dungeon farming will still occur, but it'll just be on a wider range of dungeons, which should prevent it from becoming less monotonous. And to be honest, I can completely understand why ArenaNet want to do this. They put a lot of work into these dungeons, and they want players to make use of them. So it must have been quite disconcerting to see players only doing one path of one dungeon just for money. And now we will see a wider range, and I'll actually probably do some parts of dungeons I haven't even done yet, so I'm really looking forward to this. I'm really stoked. Champion loot has now changed, so champions will now drop containers which contain loot such as coins, skill points, crafting materials, and have a rare chance to drop item skins too, which is really nice, so woo, more loot. And finally, in terms of nerfing and buffing for classes, I looked through the patch notes and it seemed that most of it was just adjustments to the skill description themselves, so adding skill facts, removing skill facts, updating them, etc, etc, which is really good. It means we don't have to be adjusting our builds too much. Most of it just seemed to be things like that, so like I say, just housekeeping stuff. And I think that's just about it for this patch. I've probably missed a few things out, but these are the things that really stood out to me. I'll include the patch notes in the description below. It'll be a link to the Guild Wars 2 forums. It'll have everything you need to know on there, or pretty much everything you need to know, I assume so. So go ahead and check that out if you want to know more about it. So that's all from me today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, it really helps me out. As usual, comments are completely encouraged in the comment section below. If you want to talk about the patch, if you want to include anything that I've missed out, please feel free to do so. And if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. So thanks a lot everyone, see you later.